Uh-oh. 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 That was Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna and talking to Dr. Kinzer, an expert in MK Ultra, about a program, the secret, top secret program that many people have denied existed, even though the government has sort of acknowledged that it's existed over the years, but a lot of people still looked at it as a conspiracy theory. Woo! Whoa, boy. Welcome back to Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon. It is 6:38 in the p.m. here on Friday, July the 10th, 2026. The future is here. The future is now. The future's not looking so good in some ways. And now we see why. In these hearings, called by Anna Paulina Rubio. Why do I want to call her Anna Paulina Rubio? Oh, yeah, there was a singer named Paulina Rubio. Right. Back in the days. Anna Paulina Luna, not Anna Paulina Rubio, who would be a different person. Anna Paulina Luna, who chairs the House Oversight Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets, held a congressional hearing called Mind Control and Accountability, uncovering the truth of CIA's MK Ultra experiments last week. And the hearing was part of the task force's broader effort to review historically classified government programs. So let's get to brass tacks, folks. What the hell was MK Ultra? Okay, MK Ultra was a covert CIA research program beginning in 1953 during the Cold War. It all goes back to the Cold War. These people will tell you every 5 minutes how terrible communism is and how it doesn't work, but these people literally unloaded the clip every chance they did to trying anything to defeat this supposed thing that's supposedly not a threat because it doesn't work. Its stated goal was to explore methods of influencing or controlling human behavior for intelligence purposes. The program included research into LSD and other psychoactive drugs. Oh, we're going to get into that in a few seconds here. Hypnosis, sleep deprivation, isolation, and sensory deprivation, interrogation techniques, memory, and behavioral modification. So basically, they were doing mind control experiments on American citizens during the 1950s and 60s in this country. I wonder what happened in the 1950s and 60s. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. So here's a lot of what was said in the testimony on these human experiments. The most disturbing testimony concerned the treatment of research subjects. Witnesses, yes, there were witnesses, described how some of these experiments involved LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, barbiturates, amphetamines, hypnosis, electroshock, prolonged isolation, and sensory deprivation. That's right. You had witnesses that stressed that many participants never even gave informed consent to any of this, which violates ethical principles that are considered fundamental in medical research. You got to have consent, folks. You can't just go around doing experiments on human animals, okay? You can't do that unless you're the government, apparently, because it looks like they've gotten away with it. Now, who are they doing this on? Examples included psychiatric patients, prisoners, military personnel, hospital patients, and civilians were unknowingly dosed with LSD. That's right, LSD. Now, one thing that's crazy about all of this is that if you look back in the 1950s and the 1960s, right, you see that the hippie movement was a big thing. All of a sudden, taking LSD became a big thing. I actually talked to Miss McCready about this a few weeks ago, I believe, and she's talking about Ken Kesey. Ken Kesey was the basically the godfather of LSD. And so Ken Kesey was a part of these MK Ultra CIA led acid experiments while he was in the army. And so you figure out why the hippie movement sort of devolved into what it did with the sort of drug culture. What started the drug culture of the 1960s in places like San Francisco and LA and these types of things? It was the CIA. The CIA did this. You had people like the Merry Pranksters and the Grateful Dead. I know you know the Grateful Dead, the old famous rock group, and they all got looped in. They all essentially became a part of this. The Hells Angels, the racist motorcycle gang as well, they became a part of this. The whole Northern California counterculture of the 1960s, which has been documented in countless movies, TV shows, documentaries, books, and everything else, was a part basically spawned by the CIA. The CIA basically created hippies. Now, why would they do this? Anybody want to tell me why they would do this? Why would they do this? Well, in the 1950s, we saw progress. I talk about this a lot on this show, and you guys know this if you listen regularly. I talk about the New Deal, Great Society, Civil Rights Coalition, what I call the most successful political coalition in the history of America. Hell, maybe the world. Who knows? If you know any more successful political coalitions, let me know. The New Deal, Great Society, Civil Rights Coalition that drastically changed virtually everybody living in this country's life for the better in the mid 20th century, right? In 1940, black poverty was about 90%. 90% of black people, black Americans, at this point virtually overwhelmingly legacy black Americans who descended from slaves, were living in poverty in 1940. By 1970, that number was all the way down to 30%. The New Deal, the Great Society, the Civil Rights Movement, that coalition changed America for the better, for once. And not only did we benefit, as they say, a rising boat, a rising tide lifts all boats. When black people and the Civil Rights Movement started to come up, so did workers. The labor rights movement, the most powerful organized labor ever was in this country, the most powerful the working class was ever in this country, was in the middle of the 20th century. And there was a very big connection between the Civil Rights Movement and the labor movement. Black people to this day are the group with the highest level of union membership of any other group of people. Black people depend on labor union jobs, particularly the public sector union jobs, more than anybody else. That's why when Elon Musk and Doge gutted all those, public sector jobs, black women lost 300,000 jobs, black men lost 500,000 jobs. The public sector union jobs, and let me just say that is socialism, folks. If you don't know that, if you work for the government, that is socialism. Just letting you know. The people who benefited from that, overwhelmingly working class people, black people, minorities, benefited from the coalition. And so what did our government do? They went out of their way to destroy it. That's right. That's right. The black community had made too much progress in such a short period of time. Organized labor had made too much progress in a short period of time. Hell, the March on Washington, organized by A. Philip Randolph, the vice president of the AFL-CIO. The UAW funded the March on Washington in 1963 that Martin Luther King gives his I Have a Dream speech at. So again, you have this coalition. Black people who moved from the South amid the Great Migration were moving into union jobs. And so what they did, they added an element. And this is why I hate liberals the way I do, okay? If you listen to the show, you know I hate liberals, and this is a big part of the reason why. The left had created a class-conscious class movement of working class people, organized labor, civil rights leaders. And what happened? LSD, the drug culture, the sex culture, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that stuff was added into what was called the left. And it completely dismantled all the progress that we were making. The counterculture, the unseriousness of it, the degeneracy of it. Charles Manson, who was part of these experiments, was a hippie. Charles Manson was a hippie. Him and his family, they were a hippie commune family, doing LSD and having orgies and all those other things. Okay? That's who they were. And so when he does what he does and all the other, degenerate hippies are doing what they do, people are going, oh my God, is this what the left is about? Really? This is what the left is about, huh? Not about organized labor, not about the working class, not about the civil rights movement, but the weirdo hippies and the feminists and all these other people. Gloria Steinem was another person, worked for the CIA. Her job in the CIA, and anybody can Google any of this. If you don't believe me, Google it, okay? I encourage you. When she worked for the CIA, her job was to interject herself into anti-war movements during the 60s and 70s. Well, I forgot to add the anti-war movement was another part of this puzzle as well. And steer the anti-war movements away from talking about class and steer them to only talking about gender. And that's where these gender wars start that you see you can't go on Twitter or any other social media platform without seeing a bunch of angry feminists and angry red pill people declaring war on the opposite gender. That starts there. That starts there. Martin Luther King was the hub of all of it. He was the #1 civil rights leader in the country. He was the #1 anti-war activist in this country. He was the #1 labor activist in this country. Remember, he died marching alongside sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. That's what he was doing at the time of his death. He was organizing support for sanitation workers. And so the organized labor movement, the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement that had coalesced, they introduced the hippies and their degenerate nonsense and their gender nonsense, their weirdo identity politics that continues to plague the left to this day. And they destroyed all of it. They destroyed it with their cultural liberal nonsense. We almost eradicated poverty in this country. A lot of people don't know that. By the early 70s, and I wasn't alive at this point, so I have to, just go by what I've read in books and seen in documentaries and stuff. But from everything I've heard and read, we almost eradicated poverty in the early 70s in this country. Thanks to the New Deal, Great Society, Civil Rights Coalition. And they introduced the drugs, and they introduced the nonsense, the degeneracy nonsense into what was called the left. And we've been struggling ever since. And so MK Ultra was a huge, huge part of this. This went on from the 1950s through the 1970s. They used LSD, and then they destroyed the records. That's another thing. They destroyed a lot of the records in 1973. There are still some records left, and the debate is whether they should be released to the public. Obviously, I believe they should be. As you heard in the clip, Anna Paulina Luna, not Anna Paulina Rubio, who's a totally different person, but Anna Paulina Luna was talking about Operation Paperclip. Again, a lot of this came from the Nazis. The Nazis were doing those type of experiments. After World War II ended, we didn't kill all the Nazis. We didn't put them all in jail. We brought a lot of them here to America and put them to work in the United States government. Very famously, we brought a lot of the German Nazis here and set them up in suburbs, in nice communities that black people weren't allowed to live in. The black GIs who defeated Hitler, who defeated the Nazis, weren't allowed to live in those neighborhoods, but Nazis who literally fought with Hitler could live in those neighborhoods. And so that's what Operation Paperclip was. Anna Paulina Luna, got it this time, says she's going to the German parliament to start trying to find the victims of MK Ultra that are buried in Germany. Kim Blom, who was the chief of biological weapons development for the Nazis, came to work for the CIA. So did Walter Schreiber, who was the Surgeon General of the Nazi army. And they tell you that, like, the Soviet Union were the bad guys. Fidel Castro's the bad guy. China's the bad guy. Iran, Russia, these people are the bad guys. No, the bad guys are the people ruling over you. That brought the Nazis here to do MK Ultra experiments on us. And literally could not handle the fact that black people and working class people and anti-war people had gotten together and almost created the society that America claimed is supposed to be about. And so they destroyed it with drugs and other nonsense. And that's why I don't tolerate the liberal nonsense now from these people. Because they ruin the left in this country. This is why we can't have a true left-wing party in this country. We're stuck with the corporate sellout Democratic Party run by Wall Street and AIPAC and the military-industrial complex people because they destroyed it. We could have had it all, folks. We could have had it all. So I think a good question to ask now is, why are they doing this now? Because you know, if they're letting us know this now, there's some reason for it. Some people think it's a distraction from the Epstein files. Like, if you notice, between the war in Iran and the talk about, gas prices and, the elections, Graham Plattner and Mamdani and all these other people, and now MK Ultra, people aren't really talking about the Epstein files. So that could be a big part of it. It could be, and it also could be a distraction from, things that are currently going on, like the Charlie Kirk assassination, which looks fishier by the day. I didn't believe any of the conspiracy theories when it first happened, but now looking at like a lot about the assassination or the murder of the white supremacist podcaster does not make much sense. Like the idea that, the type of assault rifle that was used to supposedly kill him would be stopped. The bullet would not exit his body is pretty unlikely. You'd have to have a neck of steel, literal steel, not bone. In order to do that. So there's a lot weird about it. There's a lot weird about the supposed assassin. And of course, Donald Trump's supposed assassination attempts, which somebody brought this up to me not too long ago. I also kind of waffled a little bit on those Trump assassination attempts. But I will say it's extremely strange that as petty and vindictive as Donald Trump is, he does not ever talk about the people who tried to kill him, ever. Whenever somebody tries to assassinate Trump, allegedly, he says nothing about them. He'll talk about Rosie O'Donnell. He'll talk about Candace Owens. He'll talk about, if you just slight Trump in the slightest of way, he will come after you and call you everything but a child of God. But people who actually tried to kill him, supposedly, he doesn't say anything about them. So I find that very strange. That and think maybe there is something to the idea that they're just distracting us. It's okay. All these people are dead now, and so whatever satisfaction those of us who have talked about this or thought about this for a long time get really is not really going to lead to much. Virtually everybody who had participated in this and who's a victim of this are probably dead now for the most part. But I do think it's notable to talk about because it is important that people know what their government is capable of. Again, this is a government that will constantly tell you that external people are your enemy. The external vote, it's the Russians, it's the Iranians, it's the Chinese, it's, you know, it's Fidel Castro, it's Cuba, and those people. No, it's the people running this country, the elites running this country. Those are the people who have always been the biggest threat to us and always will be. All right, folks, we're coming up at the top of the hour. Yes, we are. But I got to go to a commercial break. When we come back, it's time for some happy happies. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. We'll be right back here on Straight Out of the Cannon with me, Scott Cannon.